There's an old saying, heavy is the head that wears the crown, and it speaks to the burden of power and responsibility. Everyone wants to be king, but the power and responsibility of the crown presses down on the skull, reminding the wearer that privilege and pressure always go hand in hand. In the world of Batman Beyond, this expression has two very different meanings. For Terry McGinnis, the crown is the mantle of Batman, a legacy he embraces even though it demands sacrifice and discipline. The weight makes him stronger. But for the Royal Flush Gang, the crown is a curse. Their roles aren't chosen, they are inherited. A family business built on crime, where titles like King, Queen and Jack are passed down like heirlooms. For them, the crown doesn't inspire greatness, it smothers them. What should be power becomes resentment. What should be family becomes a prison. But before I get into that, it's important to talk about the comic book original characters, just so you can see how spectacular the DCAU take on them was. The Royal Flush Gang first appeared in Justice League of America number 43, published in 1966. The first gang was led by Amos Fortune, a villain obsessed with luck and chance. Naturally, his costumed crew followed a playing card theme. This group was themed after the club suit. These criminals had grown up with Fortune in a street gang. They weren't related, but they were so close that they could almost be considered a family. The second Royal Flush Gang, the Spade Suit, were recruited by a mysterious man calling himself Ace under the direction of Green Lantern villain Hector Hammond. Hammond wanted to siphon off the Justice League's energy to get his body moving again. Unlike the first, this gang were strangers, each with their own reasons for joining. 10 was a test pilot, fired after standing up to sexual harassment at work. Jack was a conman who killed a mark while trying to steal her necklace. Queen had been a popular actress who lost it all after becoming an alcoholic. King had been a homeless man with lung cancer. And Ace was an android. This group flew on mechanical cards and came with powers. King controlled minds, Queen cast illusions. Jack had a laser eye and 10 fired blasts from her gloves. Neither team made much impact and both were easily beaten by the Justice League. Other suits appeared over the years, but it was usually the Spades who shuffled back into play thanks to their powers. When the Super Friends cartoon got to them, the Royal Flush Gang was streamlined into a pack of themed thugs working under the Joker, who was himself working under Darkseid for some reason. I'm sure there are diehard Super Friends fans that love this take on the characters, and you know what, that's fine. But the Saturday morning cartoons of the 1980s didn't have a lot of room for nuanced villains. So it's fortunate then that the Royal Flush Gang were given a bit of spit polish for their debut in Batman Beyond. Now remember, while Batman Beyond is set towards the end of the DCAU, it started airing in 1999, a few years before Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. However, for the sake of this video, I'm going to talk about the Royal Flush Gangs that appeared in their in-universe chronological order. The very first version of the Royal Flush Gang debuted in the Justice League two-parter, Wildcards. They are a group of metahuman teenagers that had been rescued from a government facility by the Joker. It's not really clear if the Joker knew about the kids ahead of time, or if he just stumbled upon them while looting a government facility. But he took the kids under his wing and dressed them up in playing card themed costumes, with him acting as the Joker of the pack. Get it? We're never told the kids' names, only their criminal names. 10, who was super strong and impervious to harm. Jack, who had elasticity powers. Queen, who controlled metal. King, who could fire energy bolts. And Ace, who had terrifying psychic powers that could drive people insane with just a glance. Joker planned to hijack Las Vegas, make it unmissable news, and then beam Ace's stare into televisions across the globe. Because who needs a laugh when you can just break every mind on Earth, right? Their partnership didn't last, with Ace turning on Joker before the gang was taken into custody. Most of them vanished from history, but Ace remained. She came back in the Justice League Unlimited episode Epilogue. By then she'd formed her own Royal Flush Gang, empowering them herself. But Ace had grown too powerful. An aneurysm was going to trigger a psychic backlash that would kill thousands of people, if not millions. The government sent Batman to stop her, but instead of fighting, he sat with her. He comforted her. And when she died peacefully, undoing all the harm she had done. This is the inverse of how Joker had treated Ace, and it really highlights the difference between the two men. Joker acted as if he cared about her because he wanted to exploit her powers. Batman genuinely cared about her to the point that he discards a weapon that would have ended the threat there and then by killing her. Instead, he chose compassion and comforted her until she died. It's one of the most poignant Batman moments ever animated, and you can tell that the events had a profound impact on Batman because, decades later, he named his beloved guard dog after her. I've done a whole video about that version of Ace, so add that to your watch later list if you fancy having a little bit of a cry. The link is in the description and the info button in the top right corner. So that neatly transitions to the time of Batman Beyond, where the Royal Flush Gang had evolved again. This time, the roles weren't jobs, they were hereditary titles, a dynasty of crime passed down like cursed heirlooms. They're also a mishmash of the two main comic book gangs. They're normal people that dress in playing card themed costumes, with no superpowers except for Ace, who is a mute super strong android. They fly through the skies of Neo Gotham on mechanical playing cards, which gives them a very distinct look. When they're on the prowl, they're looking down on everyone else. One of the most overt themes in Batman Beyond is legacy. Terry McGinnis chooses to inherit Batman's mission, to rise above his past mistakes. The Royal Flush Gangs are the inverse. They don't get a choice, and their legacy is shackles dressed as finery. King is bitter about living in the shadow of his predecessor, Queen's father, a ruthless man he can never quite measure up to. And while he clearly despises his role, he clings to it anyway. The family presents themselves as aristocrats of crime, with monocles and cravats, dripping with wealth, but everything they have is stolen. They aren't nobles, they're classless crooks in cosplay. The most sympathetic member is 10, Melanie Walker. She's the lowest ranked member, the daughter of King and Queen, and she dreams of a normal life, but her parents refuse to let her have one. When she has a chance meeting with Terry at a nightclub after he broke up with his longtime girlfriend Dana, he becomes her one shot at freedom. To Terry, she is a kindred spirit, someone that knows what it's like to have familial responsibilities. Perhaps together they could live a normal, happy life. No. Like her, Terry inherited a life he never asked for, but he made it his own. Melanie rejects hers entirely. Again, I've done a video on Melanie Walker, so for brevity's sake I'll leave her analysis there, but add her video to your watch later list if you want to hear more. Once again, I've linked to it in the info button. Because of this, the Walker family is doomed to collapse. Melanie eventually leaves and chooses to live in poverty. The rest of the family tried to get by without her, but without the full deck, they were incomplete and ineffective. King tries to manipulate Melanie into returning by staging a fake kidnapping. This forces Melanie to pull off heists on her own to save her family, but they were never really in danger. It was all a ruse to try to drag her back into the criminal life. King expected Melanie to realise she belonged in the family, that thievery was in her blood, but it had the opposite effect, pushing her even further away. Following this, the Walkers were forced to become freelance thieves, selling their services to the highest bidder. They had regularly worked for the corrupt Wayne Powers CEO Paxton Powers, who had them steal rare antiquities for his private collection. But they hated feeling like servants. Stealing for other people was below them. They should be robbing to maintain their own luxurious lifestyle, not selling themselves out, and this caused further division in the family. Eventually, tired of his wife's complaining, King betrayed her, hooking up with Paxton Powers' assistant Sable Thorpe and kidnapping Powers for ransom. What he didn't know is that Wayne Powers has a strict policy that prevents them from engaging with hostage takers. Powers didn't have the cash to cover the ransom, but he offered part of his secret collection to cover the bill. He just needed Bruce Wayne to deliver it. However, Powers notes that now that Wayne knows about his collection, he will undoubtedly turn him into the police. So he offered King even more of his collection to murder Bruce Wayne. How far the once mighty Royal Flush Gang has fallen, reduced to common assassins. Of course, their attempt on Wayne's life is not successful thanks to the timely intervention from Ace the dog. Insert joke about Bruce Wayne keeping an ace up his sleeve. In the skirmish, King flees, leaving Queen to get arrested, and Paxton Powers' secret stash gets exposed. You'd think that King would be distraught at how things turned out, but in the commotion he got away with some of the loot, and plans to start a new life with Sable. What he didn't count on was his wife managing to escape, and she is not willing to put up with King's nonsense anymore. By the end, their dynasty is a wreck. Melanie bails out her brother Jack and offers to help him start fresh, so it seems like there is hope for the Walkers. But this was the last time that the Royal Flush Gang appeared in Batman Beyond. Having said that, they made a handful of appearances in the tie-in comics. In Batman Beyond number 23, we're shown that civilian life didn't take to Jack, so he carried on the family's tradition by starting his own new faction of the Royal Flush Gang. However, his father was less than pleased to be put out to pasture, so he informed on him just to prove who's still king. Their royal family crumbles into pettiness, betrayal, and self-destruction. They may talk a big game about their family's legacy and their nobility, but they buckle under the pressure. And that's why the Royal Flush Gang are such perfect foils for Terry McGinnis. Batman's legacy is a gift he chooses to accept, one that makes him better. Theirs is a burden they drag along, one that poisons them from within. They think that they're royalty, but they're just crooks, crushed beneath the very crown they inherited. Okay, that's it for this week's essay. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really enjoyed the video and have the means, please consider making use of the thanks button to send $1 or $2 my way, because every little helps. I offer channel memberships for $1.99 a month. This will get you early access to my weekly video essay, priority responses to your comments, members-only videos, custom emojis, and an icon on your profile indicating that you're one of my people. And special thanks to my channel members. Everyone who was a member at the time of this video's creation is listed on the screen right now. If you want to see your name amongst all these wonderful people, join the channel now. Next time, I'll be back on Monday to talk about the overwhelming winner of my latest Beware the Batman poll, Deathstroke. And yes, I will also cover his Teen Titans counterpart Slade. I'm also going to release a special bonus video to commemorate the 25th anniversary of Static Shock on the 23rd of September, so do keep an eye out for that one. If this video does well, who knows, maybe I'll talk about more characters from that show. And then next Friday I want to talk about an often overlooked hero that stood up against his father, the ultimate evil in the universe. Yes, we're going to be talking about Orion. Hope to see you then.